Working on my 2008 3 Series. I'm going to be tackling this deteriorated inner door pull on the passenger side. It's very gummy and sticky to the touch. It leaves a black residue on your hand every time you touch it. It's nasty. It just happens with age. I just did a similar job on my X5. It had the same symptoms and I was able to change it without removing the door panel. I'm not so sure on this car. We'll get in there and see what needs to be done. I bought a replacement door handle for about 43 bucks. That's the part number right there. So, luckily it's available. That's it right there. So, that's what the rubber looks like when it's in good shape. And that's what it looks like when it gets all nasty over time. So we'll start disassembling to see what needs to be done to get this out of the way. To start, I'm using a panel trim removal tool to get in behind this piece here, to pry it forward. It's clipped in with a few different clips along the way. And then once you get a couple off, you can just get the rest by hand. Just gonna go around to the front now. Those clips there felt like they'd never been released before, so it was a little finicky. So I had one casualty. These clips, it's pretty much every time you take one of these trim pieces off, you'll find one of them separate. So I'm just going to run a bit of super glue in there, and it all goes back together. So I can reuse that clip, but just keep in mind that, like, from my experience, it's pretty typical for one of these to let go when you're trying to pull out trim like that. So I can easily fix it though. So just going to reinsert this repaired clip. So we're good to go. Alright, next step is going to be prying this off. So you get it from the base. You pretty much do this with your hand. That pops off. And it's going to reveal a couple T20 torques. So I definitely see that we have to remove the door panel. There's no way around that, just the way this thing clips into the door panel. So we're going to have one T20 torques back here. Okay. Get over here. Do the center one. Okay. So now that we have all those screws removed, we're ready to pry. Again, we're going to use our panel trim removal tool. Just get in behind here. Just to pop off a couple clips. car definitely feels like it's never had this panel removed before. Very tight. Basically go around. Once you get it to that point, you want to make sure that we clear this lock over here. So you gotta kind of lift, pull away, and lift up at the same time. It doesn't look very elegant, but that's how it gets done. So here we are. At the back side, we have our power window switch. It's just going to pull out straight. We have our puddle light over here. Pulls out. Door handle. Bowden cable. You just pull up here. Comes out. And we're free. One thing that happened because of the way the door panel kind of went away from me when I pulled away. 2 speaker leads. I'll show you guys. 2 speaker leads just literally detach. Those 2. I'm sure they were connected, but the door panel kind of just flew away when I pulled it. So, what you want to see, this should stay on the car. That's what you want. You don't want that to come with the panel because otherwise you have to put it back on. But we'll go over to the panel now and see what needs to be done. Well, this is definitely unexpected and a lot harder than it really needs to be, but if you notice right here, here's the new one. What they do at the factory, I guess, is basically just use some type of heat source to compress and rivet that on and compress this down. Basically smear it and, I guess with pressure and heat, take these tube-like structures and roll them over to be like a rivet, a melted rivet. So the only way I can get the old one off is to drill those out. What I'm gonna do is, when I insert these, I'm just gonna use JB weld to hold it into place because there's lots of clearance for that, for these pegs, so I'm just gonna do that. But I'll start by drilling those out. Trying a 3/8 bit for now. That wasn't too hard. Just pops that head off. You end up with that. Do the next one. You definitely don't want to go too far, so I can just pop the rest of that off with a screwdriver. So, like so. We'll go for the 2 that are in here. The 3/8 seem to be a really good size to use. Now we'll stand it up. Let's see if we can just pull this out. check the other side how it's going along. So one side popped out, one side's just barely holding on. Maybe just a bit more drilling on that one. There you go. Off. And you can see how deteriorated this is. And here's our door panel now. Let's take our new handle and lay it in. It wasn't really smooth. Flip it over. And you can see from the factory, these pegs here, they just get melted and compressed. Plenty of clearance. I'm going to leave this thing bottomed out, and we'll just smear some JB Weld around there to make it our own little plastic rivet. I have this JB Weld Quick. It's really handy. We'll just put 2 globs, but decent sized globs because we're going to need a decent amount of this material. This will be as good as it was ultimately because it ends up hardening to almost the strength of steel. So with JB Weld, you want to mix in equal proportions. Should have about 5 minutes working time. If you've never used this before, you're just going to mix it until it's an even color. This is freaking kind of ridiculous. I just did mine on my X5 last night, and it was a piece of cake. It's like, this is way more overkill than it needs to be. I guess they want to keep the cost down. This is more of a mass-produced way to do it. Not sure. So we'll take some of this and just put it around. Effectively making a plastic rivet. Right now it's bottomed out, like it's just all the weight of the door panel is resting on that handle and holding it right up firm against the panel. Those two are good. Going after the inner ones now. I guess if you really wanted to do this legit, you could have sanded down those pegs a bit to get more contact area, but I'll show you something in a minute. Ultimately, this gets held down firm by the torque screws. This is just more to keep it attached to the panel for now until you reassemble. And you're not going to break this free because you put a screw in after. This lower one's a little important because there's no screw coming through, so it's like this is what's kind of between the support. The upper one has a screw going right through the middle of the handle, so the majority of your pulling force will be applied to the screw and not to these pegs. But at the same time, JB Weld is very strong stuff. And this is a good use of it. We're gonna let this set now. But like I'm saying, your torque when you pull on the handle is going to be applied to that screw hole, not so much those pegs. Down here, the only major way to connect it is these pegs, so those are a little more important. But they're all it becomes part of the panel. So I would say, regardless, so when you give it a good yank, you're not going to rip through this JB Weld and pull that handle right out into your hand because you got this screw. I'm sure this will be just as good as OEM, and I don't have any fancy tools to melt on that plastic. This is what they look like after you drill them out. So there's a screw that goes right through there, so when you apply torque, it's going to put the pressure on those guys. So we'll let this set, and then I'll show you guys once it's dry. So the JB Weld has just started to set, just ever so slightly pliable, but it's pretty much, you don't get a sticky residue on your hand now. It's solid as a rock, so I'm not even worried. That's probably just as good or better than what we had on there before, so I'm gonna reassemble now. Okay, so we're going after the connections. Got your 2 passenger side speaker inputs, they're blue. Power window. New magnet. Not a lot of room for the mat plate. Got that, and then this is right there, I believe. Just for cable management. And then you have your Bowden cable for the grab handle. You gotta hold it in the closed position and click it into place. And then you got your lock. You want to have that facing up like that. And then you pass the lock. Pass the lock through here. Before you try to click anything into place. You have to eyeball a couple of the holes before you try to push it in. Once you get one or two lined up, you're good. A couple of my clips are actually beat up, so I guess someone has been in here before. But basically, you have a series of clips here. Gotta give those a good knock to make sure they're seated. I gotta check one of my lower clips here. Feels good. You'll know when you have it all level, because you'll have an even gap all the way along here. And then there's a bunch of clips that hold this upper part on. You'll feel an even gap with your finger here. Same story here. When you have it on, you'll feel a nice tight gap all the way around. So I'm ready to put the screws back in now. Like I was saying, here's where the majority of the pressure will be applied when you do end up pulling your door closed. But even without that, it's really solid. So I'm happy with that. These are up at a bit of an angle. It's kind of hard to find them. Gotta put this piece in first, but I'm gonna clean the gunk off it. Okay, we're ready for this piece. I wasn't recording when I clipped this piece in. Sorry about that, but basically you got to start from this side. So you have the piece angled out. There's a little lip that this has to actually grab onto right here. So you start out at an angle, and then once you got this side on, pivot it flat, and it'll kind of line up with the clips, and then just smack it. then you'll get this piece on. And you'll feel an even gap all along here. So like I said, this side goes in first. You can't just slide this on because you'll interfere with the clips. So you gotta come on an angle, pivot it. So this side's on in a pivot and then fold down and then hammer it. So this outer piece here, it was tacky and shiny as well, actually, and I could see it was starting I didn't realize, I thought just this material had actually kind of made its way onto the outside grab handle, this cover, right? Because it's nice and smooth on the inside now and feels good. But this outer cover piece, on my X5 it's covered in leather, so I would never have had that issue. But on this car, this was a bit tacky and sticky. This is still ever so slightly tacky. From my experience, I use silicone lube on deteriorated rubber. And I'm just gonna pat it with a microfiber. Gets rid of the tackiness. It just completely gets rid of that stickiness. Just a tip, but I'm changing this now anyway. I'm just gonna order this. It's probably like 20 bucks. So inner handle is what you're gonna make contact with anyway. It feels great now, nice and smooth. And then I'll replace this later. It's doable now though, it's not sticky. But I noticed just from experience, a little bit of silicone lube goes a long way to rejuvenate rubber. Maybe someone in the comments is going to tell me I'm an idiot, I'm ruining it, but I've done this a few times and it's worked out. Gets rid of that shine, gets rid of the tackiness. So that's what we're left with. That's what it looks like. Big improvement, pretty happy with that. So that's how you change your inner grab, your door pull on your 3 Series BMW on the passenger side. And I'll do a little follow-up video when I change this just to show the part number. It's quite fine right now. It looks completely legit and nobody would really give that a second glance. So, you know, I'm not in a rush to change that, but if I want it to be perfect, I gotta change that piece as well. But overall, this job isn't as easy as I was hoping. It was a joke on my BMW, on my E90 BMW, but on this car, it's a little involved, but end result is perfect. So that's how you do it. Thanks for watching and good luck.